Welcome to Daily News Simplified. Here we take up important news article from the Hindu, which are important from the UPSC examination perspective and other competitive examination. The topics for today's discussion are displayed on your screen. Now let's begin the discussion. The first topic, that is India-ASEAN relation, is based on news article appearing on the Hindu. Recently, Prime Minister of India visited Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, and the visit had a primary focus on strengthening India's engagement with this significant group of 10 Southeast Asian nations. The presence of Indian Prime Minister at the annual India-ASEAN Summit aimed to solidify traditional ties with neighboring Asian economies, especially during a period marked by increased uncertainty in global trade. For example, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development pointed out in its Global Trade Update that the outlook for global trade in the second half of 2023 was pessimistic due to various negative factors such as downgraded global economic forecast, persistent inflation, financial vulnerabilities, and geopolitical tensions. And against this background, the joint leaders' statement at the ASEAN-India Summit on strengthening food security and nutrition in response to crisis highlighted the shared concerns in the region regarding heightened global food insecurity. And this insecurity had been a serious concern due to various factors such as conflict in Ukraine, climate change, and national policies responding to inflationary pressures. For example, India's recent restrictions on rice exports had raised concerns as the prices of this regional staple were reportedly near a 15-year high. There's also looming threat of El Nino event, which is historically related to disruptive weather events, adding to the concerns. In this background, we will be discussing what is ASEAN, what are the opportunities does ASEAN provide for India, what are the areas of cooperation between India and ASEAN, and some of the issues and challenges between India-ASEAN relations. The topic is also important as in Prelims 2018, question appeared which of the above are among the free trade partners of ASEAN. First, we will be discussing what is ASEAN. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations is a regional grouping that aims to promote economic and security cooperation among its 10 members. These 10 members are Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam and Singapore. ASEAN was established in 1967 in Bangkok with the signing of ASEAN Declaration, that is also known as Bangkok Declaration, by the founding fathers of ASEAN, and these founding members are Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. The motto of ASEAN is One Vision, One Identity, and One Community. And the Secretariat of ASEAN is located in Jakarta, that is the capital of Indonesia. And as of 2020-22, a combined gross domestic product of ASEAN members is $3.2 trillion. Now let us look at the institutional mechanism of ASEAN. It includes ASEAN Summit. The summit meets annually to discuss regional issues and set policy directions. The ASEAN Coordinating Council, it oversees the implementation of ASEAN agreements and decisions. The ASEAN Secretariat supports and facilitates ASEAN's activities and initiatives. The ASEAN Regional Forum is a platform for dialogue and cooperation on political and security issues among ASEAN members and their partners. And the decision making is done through consultation and consensus among the ASEAN members. Some of the fundamental principles of ASEAN are mutual respect for independence, sovereignty, equality, territorial integrity, national identity of all the nations, right of every state to lead its national existence free from external interference, subversion, and coercion, non-interference in internal affairs of one another, settlement of differences or disputes in a peaceful manner, renunciation of threat or use of force, and effective cooperation among the members. Now let us briefly look at how did ASEAN originate and evolve. Association of Southeast Asia in 1961. It was formed by Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand to promote economic, cultural, and social cooperation. With the 1967 Bangkok Declaration, ASEAN was established. The first ASEAN summit took place in 1976, and the member countries pledged to work towards regional peace and stability. The Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in 1976 established a framework for peaceful relations and cooperation among member states, and with the ASEAN Free Trade Area 1992, it was aimed to create a free trade area among member countries. The 2008 ASEAN Charter provides a legal framework for the organization and strengthens its institutional structure. The 2015 ASEAN Economic Community has aimed to integrate the economies of member countries and promote regional economic growth. ASEAN in the year 2020 has joined Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is a free trade agreement. ASEAN has also developed strong diplomatic ties with major powers such as United States, China, and Japan, which has allowed it to leverage its strategic position and influence on the global issues. ASEAN has free trade agreements with number of countries like India, Japan, New Zealand, China, and South Korea. Moving on, now let us look at the opportunities that ASEAN provides for India. ASEAN is significant for India in several ways, such as it provides a potential market, as ASEAN constitutes third largest market in the world, which can help India utilize its export potential. Convergence with the Indo-Pacific strategy. ASEAN recently has been a focus for India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific strategy, which is reflecting the convergence of interest in the region. Also, strengthening relations with ASEAN countries can serve as a counterbalance for China's influence in the region. Also, connectivity initiatives with ASEAN members can boost economic development in India's northeastern states by positioning them as a hub for regional trade and commerce. Also, ASEAN has been playing a central role in promoting a rules-based security architecture in the Indo-Pacific region, which is essential for region stability and prosperity. So, what are the areas of cooperation between India and ASEAN? India and ASEAN have a wide range of areas of cooperation, as ASEAN is one of the important pillars of India's Act East policy. India currently has annual summits with ASEAN. The formal engagement began with sectoral dialogue partner in the year 1992 and subsequently as a dialogue partner in the year 1996. It was upgraded to the summit level in the year 2002. India and ASEAN have signed an FTA that has boosted trade and investment between the two, as ASEAN is India's fourth largest trading partner. Also, ASEAN-India Business Council was set up in the year 2005 with the aim of fostering closer business linkages. India is also working on enhancing connectivity with ASEAN countries through India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway, the Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project, etc. India and ASEAN have strengthened defense cooperation by conducting joint military exercises such as ASEAN-India Maritime Exercise and ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus. Also, for example, India has placed ASEAN at the center of its Indo-Pacific vision of security and growth for all in the region, that is, SAGAR. India and ASEAN have also promoted cultural exchanges to enhance people-to-people connectivity. For example, inviting ASEAN students to India each year for the Students Exchange Program, special training courses for Asian diplomats, etc. In the field of education and research, India has established ASEAN India Center at the Research and Information System for Developing Countries to promote research and studies on ASEAN India relations. The Delhi Dialogue 2009 is an annual Track 1.5 forum for discussing politico-security, economic and socio-cultural issues between India and ASEAN. Financial assistance has been provided to ASEAN countries from ASEAN India Cooperation Fund, ASEAN India Science and Technology Development Fund and ASEAN India Green Fund. However, while India and ASEAN have made significant progress in their bilateral relationship, there are still some issues and challenges that hinder their cooperation. Here we will be looking at some of the challenges. The first one is trade imbalances. India's trade deficit with ASEAN has increased over the years, and this has led to serious concerns in India about the benefits of ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement. Imports from ASEAN amounts to $68 billion, while exports from India to ASEAN amounts to $42 billion as per the reports of 2021 and 2022. The nature of engagement of India with Asian countries is also a concern, as India still engages with Asian countries more on a bilateral basis rather than through a multilateral approach. There is also concern of competing regional agreements. Engagement with regional agreements like RCEP, Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, diverts attention and resources away from ASEAN-India relationship. Another important concern is of Chinese presence. For example, along with widening trade deficit, there is also concern that Chinese products are taking advantage of lower tariffs under FTA to enter the Indian market, which has led to a review of agreement expected to be completed by 2025. This puts the limit on the ability of ASEAN to harness India's potential for regional stability. And despite efforts to enhance connectivity, both physical and digital connectivity between India and Asian countries remains limited, which affects trade investment and people-to-people ties. Lastly, let us see some of the steps that can be taken to improve India-ASEAN relations. These can be: the concept of Quad can be expanded to include Asian countries and become Quad Plus arrangement. Asian countries have limited military ties with China due to maritime disputes, and India can fill the gap and become a significant military partner in the region. To strengthen cultural connect, tourism can be further encouraged between India and ASEAN with some creative branding by two sides. And to strengthen connectivity via land, air and sea, linkages will have to be enhanced so that people-to-people connection is boosted. Also, it will result into boost in business, investment and tourism. India and Asian countries can work together to promote their common interest in international and regional forums through collaborations. These international and regional forums can be United Nations, East Asia Summit, Asian Regional Forum. And with this, we will be concluding the discussion for this topic. The second topic for today's session is based on the news article which appeared on page 1 of the Hindu. Recently, Prime Minister of India and US President expressed their satisfaction with the completion of notification process in US Congress. This notification pertained to a commercial agreement between General Electric Aerospace and Hindustan Aeronautics Limited for the manufacturing of GE 414 jet engines in India. The President of United States has also welcomed the issuance of a letter of request from Ministry of Defense to procure 31 General Atomics MQ-9B piloted aircraft along with their associated equipments. This procurement will significantly enhance the intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities of India's armed forces across all the domains. This commercial agreement between General Electric Aerospace and Hindustan Aeronautics Limited has been a part of recent discussion between Defense Minister of India and US Secretary of Defense, which was held in June 2023. India-US Defense Agreement is an important topic from General Studies Paper 2 syllabus, Bilateral groupings, effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interest. In Mains 2020, question appeared on similar lines. The question was, what is the significance of Indo-US defense deals over Indo-Russian defense deals discussed with reference to stability in the Indo-Pacific region? The bilateral meeting and a roadmap for defense industrial cooperation, which was held between Defense Minister of India and US Secretary of Defense. India and United States have concluded a roadmap for defense industrial cooperation. Now this roadmap aims to guide policy direction for cooperation in high technology areas and identify opportunities for co-development and co-production. The discussions also focused on building resilient supply chains and strengthening the industrial cooperation. Emphasis was laid on collaboration between defense startup ecosystems of both the countries. The key discussions of the bilateral meetings were the exploration of ways to enhance defense cooperation in various ways, which included convergence of strategic interest and enhanced security cooperation, commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, review of bilateral defense cooperation, and maintenance of engagement momentum. The inaugural dialogues on defense artificial intelligence and defense space and discussions on the regional security issues and maintaining peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. In the bilateral meeting, India had some requests and concerns. These were requests to remove stringent hurdles and complicated rules and regulations in the sales of military equipment and transfer of critical defense technologies. And concerns were also about Pakistan's trustworthiness in handling Western military equipment and platforms. The discussions were also held on collaboration on critical and advanced technologies, which involved focus on collaborating in critical and advanced technologies, particularly in underwater domain, request for easing US rules and regulations on defense equipment sales and technology transfers, importance of sourcing parts from India in relevant defense deals, as India has been focusing on defense manufacturing domestically. Emphasis on setting up maintenance, repair and overhaul facilities in India. The bilateral meeting also resulted into India-US Defense Acceleration Ecosystem, that is INDUS-X. It is a new initiative to advance cutting-edge technology cooperation, which promotes innovative partnership between US and Indian companies, investors, startup accelerators and academic research institutions. Also, US-India Business Council was launched on June 21, 2023. Now let us see the background of India-US defense relations. India-US defense relationship has its roots in the early 1990s when the two countries began to cooperate on a limited basis in areas such as counter-terrorism and defense technology. In 2004, US and India signed a landmark agreement that removed restrictions on sale of US defense technology to India. This particular agreement paved the way for a significant increase in defense cooperation between two countries, which has continued in recent years. US and India cooperate in a wide range of defense areas including counter-terrorism, humanitarian assistance, maritime security, space, missile defense, nuclear security, and military training and exercises. The two countries are also working together on a number of defense-related research and development projects. However, despite the progress that has been made, there are still some challenges to India-US defense relationship. One important challenge is different security priorities of the two countries. For example, United States is primarily concerned with security threats in the Middle East and Asia, while for India, focus is more on, for example, Taliban takeover in Afghanistan, terrorism issue from Pakistan, and then the border issues with China. Another important challenge is Indian government's reluctance to open up its defense industry to foreign investment. The Indian government is more concerned about losing control of its defense industry and about the potential for foreign companies to steal sensitive and critical technologies. Despite these challenges, in recent decades, there has been some major developments in India-US defense relations. For example, in 2005, India and United States have signed the new framework for India-US defense relationship, which established a roadmap for cooperation in areas such as defense technology, joint exercises, and training. In 2008, Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement was signed, which has allowed the two countries to share logistical support during joint military operations. In 2016, the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement was signed between India and United States, which has allowed the two countries to share sensitive communications information. Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement between India and United States was signed in 2020, which allows the two countries to share geospatial information. In 2022, India and United States have signed a $3 billion deal for India to purchase 24 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters from the United States. And in 2023, United States and India conducted their largest ever joint military exercise, that is Malabar. This exercise included over 20 ships, 20 aircraft, 2,500 personnel from the two countries. And with this, we will be concluding the discussion on this topic. The last article of today's session from The Hindu is based on South China Sea dispute. The topic is important from General Studies Paper 2 perspective. India and its neighborhood, effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest. In Mains 2015, question directly appeared on South China Sea. With respect to South China Sea, maritime territorial disputes and rising tension affirmed the need for safeguarding maritime security to ensure freedom of navigation and air flight throughout the region. In this context, discuss bilateral issues between India and China. Now let us first discuss about the news. Recently, Philippines has expressed strong disapproval of unlawful actions carried out by Chinese vessels. These boats were alleged to have disrupted a resupply mission to a remote military outpost located in contested South China Sea. And during this resupply mission, two Philippine Coast Guard vessels were escorting supply boats to Second Thomas Shoal in Spratly Islands when they encountered Chinese boat guard vessels and 4 militia boats. Now China asserts its sovereignty over nearly the entire South China Sea, which is a critical maritime route for trillions of dollars in the global trade. However, this assertion of sovereignty is despite an international ruling that has discredited the legal basis of China's claim. The second Thomas Shoal is located approximately 200 kilometers from western Philippine island of Palawan and over 1000 kilometers from China's closest major landmass, that is Hainan Island. South China Sea is the busiest waterways in the world and is famously known for trade and merchant shipping. The sea disputes are maritime and island claims between different sovereign countries in the region. These countries are China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And all these countries are geopolitically located in Indo-Pacific region. Now let us look at the historical background of South China Sea. During World War II, the Imperial Japanese Army and Navy had used several islands for military reasons and stated that these islands were unclaimed despite historical records that showed. And before the Japanese took control of their colonial possessions, France held jurisdiction over some of the islands in South China Sea. And when the World War II ended, the 1951 Treaty of San Francisco forced Imperial Japan into giving up any territory they had conquered during the war. The People's Republic of China made various claims to the island during the 1951 treaty negotiations. Chinese claims in the South China Sea are described in part by the 9-line. Originally an 11-line, this line was first indicated by Kuomintang government of Republic of China in 1947 for its claims to the south part of the sea. The Paracels and the Spratly Islands were included in Vietnamese regions south of the 17th parallel that were under South Vietnam's authority as a result of Geneva Accords of 1954, which put an end to First Indochina War. In the year 1956, the North Vietnamese government claimed that People's Republic of China is the lawful claimant of the islands, while the South Vietnam took control of the Paracel Islands. Moving on, let us see the significance of South China Sea. It is significant for the natural resources, The South China Sea is said to be a major source of natural resources for the different territories. Around 10% of nations' fisheries come from there, making it a vital source of food for hundreds of people. This is also a major reason why people from different countries are claiming their rights over the sea. The trade route passing through it, Malacca Strait, is home to 55% of the trade, and it is one of the busiest routes for the trade. Now let us look at the reasons for the dispute. The most critical reason is claims over the islands made by China, that is China's 9-dash line, and it claims the largest portion of the sea. China has been converting uninhabited islets into artificial islets, that is Great Wall of Sand, to bring it under UNCLOS, that is United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea. China has also established airstrips on Paracel and the Spratly Islands. China continues Coast Guard target vessels, military grade laser, and instead of fishing, Chinese fishing boats are involved in paramilitary activities. Some of the other reasons for the dispute are the undefined geographic scope of the South China Sea, disagreements over dispute settlement mechanisms, the code of conduct's position over the law is unclear, the uninhabited archipelagos make the matter more complicated and multifaceted. Now let us see what has been the response of countries. The countries like Vietnam, Philippines and Indonesia have always wanted political insurance to strengthen their navies, deepen military relations and avoid a direct military confrontation with China owing to their economic ties with China. Vietnam has added 6 kilo class Russian origin submarines to its navy. India has also provided BrahMos to Vietnam recently, and the Philippines wrote to UN Secretary General on the violation of Filipino sovereignty, which has been the case with Indonesia as well. Now the South China Sea dispute has also some impact on India, as India's more than 50% of the trade passes through Strait of Malacca, which opens into the South China Sea. And if China controls the region, it can hamper India's foreign trade passing through that region. Also, ensuring freedom of navigation is important from India's energy needs perspective. Discussing about India's stand, India has started internationalizing disputes in the Indo-Pacific region to oppose China's threatening tactics in South China Sea. And the key element is activist policy of India in this direction. India is also using its soft power, for example, Buddhist legacy, to make a strong bond with Southeast Asian region. And in order to defend maritime lanes of communication and counteract Chinese aggressiveness in the area, India has stationed navy in sea alongside Vietnam. Lastly, let us see some of the facts related to UNCLOS, that is United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea, which is also known as Law of the Sea Treaty. It was adopted in the year 1982 and it has divided seas into maritime zones, that is internal waters including bays, ports, inlets, rivers and lakes, territorial sea that is up to 12 nautical miles, contiguous zone up to 24 nautical miles, exclusive economic zone up to 200 nautical miles, and high seas. These are the common heritage of all mankind. And with this, we will be ending the discussion of this topic.